Right. Hello. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Britain Elects Sunday stream with myself, Ben Walker, the co-founder of Britain Elects and also a data journalist at the New Statesman, and full disclosure, a candidate in this year's local elections. I'm standing for the Labour Party, but in what I'm about to deliver, I'm hopefully going to be objective and impartial, relatively, as I possibly can. But anyway, thank you for joining us. I'm doing this at 2 p.m. instead of the customary 4. Is it 2 p.m? Yes, it is. 2 p.m. instead of the customary 4 because it's Easter Sunday and my parents are coming round. So I'll rather get this out of the way. We'll talk. We'll be succinct for once and we'll do all this good stuff. But if you're joining us just now, welcome to Britain Elects Sunday stream where we talk about the week's polls and, of course, the local elections due in 3 weeks' time. Goodness me, this is a lot to get through. So yeah, thanks for joining us. Now look, if you want to join the discussion, you can do so by going to twitch.tv/BritainElects. You can join the discussion there. And I also believe we're streaming on YouTube, although I'm not going to bother to check because this is basically a cobbled together half-arsed operation and I'm not sure if it's going to go well. Right, but anyway, let's talk about the polls. Let's talk about what's happened over the course of this week. Let's talk about how public opinion is changing, if indeed it is at all. So, thanks for joining us. Like I say, my name is Ben Walker. I'm the co-founder of Britain Elects, and we are celebrating our 10th anniversary as a quite popular fledgling Twitter account. So, yeah, I'm quite enjoying this. I can't believe I've done this for 10 years. Now, let's talk about the polls. So, we are on... How long has it been since... it's been over a year. It's been well over a year since we had a Conservative lead in the polls. And as you can see, this is the Britain Elects poll tracker. It takes into account all the pollsters, or rather all British Polling Council pollsters. The reason for that basically is because we can be guaranteed they'll at one stage be publishing the tables so we can give it a bit of, a bit of transparency. But anyway, here is the state of the polls as of the 6th of April. We don't have any new pollsters yet which have published their tables, so this is the 6th of April. Right now we have a Labour lead in the polls of 18 percentage points. The Conservatives, Labour, are on 46%, and the Conservatives are on 27.9%. You will notice it's since the start of January 2023, a slight uptick, a drift almost upwards of the Conservative share, and a slightly, it's not exactly a parallel drop, but a plateauing of the Labour vote share, right? You have a peak of 48%, and now they're on 46%. If an election was held today, of course, it would be an unmistakable Labour landslide still, although we are seeing those numbers drop slightly. I always try the reason what I attribute to this, the reason why we are seeing a drift in the Labour lead is because of the mood music over the past month and a bit. You have seen attention focus on Rishi Sunak. His ratings have improved slightly. I'll show you them now. Media focus has focused rather on immigration, on hashtag stop the boats, and of course on the budget, which whilst wasn't received respectably well, most Brits did support the individual measures announced. This is the thing with the budget, which is most Brits didn't think it would do anything for them. Most Brits didn't think it would do much to alleviate the cost of living crisis, but the individual measures announced, most were in favour. We are starting to see a bit of an uptick in that. But the primary drive of this slight move, it's all relative. It really is all relative. We shouldn't get overexcited about it. The primary drive of this uptick in Conservative ratings is, of course, slightly more attention on the Prime Minister today, Rishi Sunak. The Liz Truss crash and bang and whatever you want to call it, disappearing from the public mind, and as such you're seeing a rallying in the Tory base. You're seeing the Conservative numbers, those that backed Boris Johnson in 2019, who were turned off by Liz Truss, who were turned off initially by Rishi Sunak, now saying, he's an alright guy. What we're seeing, basically, is those who told pollsters previously they were apathetic, they're now saying, I might come out for the Conservatives. So yeah, you're watching Britain Elects. This is, you're either watching us on twitch.tv/BritainElects, twitter.com/BritainElects, or probably, maybe, on YouTube. If you are on YouTube and there is a comment section, please do let me know. I'm experimenting a few new things. But yes, these are the polls over the past week and a bit. Not much shift. yeah, I guess a slight decline in the Tory rating. A touch Labour lead, but really that's about it. Sunak's numbers have seen an uptick. His favourables have gone up from 28% in February to 34%. That's an improvement. That's worth talking about and writing home about. So indeed there is a change there. Keir Starmer's ratings, meanwhile, it's often not mentioned. It's not really often talked about, but Keir Starmer is more liked by Britons than disliked right now. Presently, as of the 2nd of April, 39% of Britons have a positive opinion on Keir Starmer and 33% have a negative. When you compare that to leaders such as David Cameron, however, it really is quite poor. David Cameron had some quite significant leads in the polls, and if I show you this tweet now that we put out on Britain Elects earlier, you look at David Cameron, how well he performed up against Gordon Brown in December 2008, which was his third year. And you'll note David Cameron had 51% approval, 51% likability amongst the voting public back then in December 2008. Keir Starmer has 39%. That's a quite significant difference. Something different is happening there, but, well, worth talking about, worth thinking about, something to muse on if you are a Labour strategist. But at any rate, look, you have a Labour lead of 18 percentage points, sometimes more, sometimes less. We have an opinion poll out recently, which has the Labour lead on 11 points. I fear that's more down to their methodology than a significant shift. But again, when you see one poll, don't get too excited. Wait for them all. Wait for a week. I know sometimes in this era of news coverage and being the first with tweets, it's easy to get overhyped about one or the other. But no, strongly, I recommend you pay attention to all of the polls if you can. But yes, no. So this is the state of public opinion. We have seen, as you can see in this chart itself, a sort of quiet surge for Rishi Sunak, if you want to call it that. He started with 29% favourability in the polls after the Liz Truss crash, where she went from 29% favourability all the way down to, close to 10% there for some reason. 15%. It really was quite bad for her. So Sunak saw a slight uptick and then declined with when coverage of the NHS really intensified. And now, with the arrival of the Brexit deal on Northern Ireland, with noise over the boat, you have seen his numbers improve somewhat. And if you want to call that a surge, I guess you can. But it's all relative, isn't it? Because it's nothing compared to Boris Johnson. And of course, it's worth bearing in mind he is still less liked than the number of Britons who like Keir Starmer. But yes, now let's get on to the local elections, because I have done these streams twice now. Last week I was ill. The week before that was our second stream, and of course the I'm forgetting the numbers. A few weeks ago, we started doing this. And every time we do the streams, we get this map up, which, for those who are just joining us, for those who don't know, this is every single ward in the country that is up for election. A ward is a seat represented by a councillor or multiple councillors, particularly if you live in urban areas. So if you live in this bit of Sunderland, for instance, which is Doxford ward, you have 3 councillors. And the seat that is up for election this year is the Liberal Democrat one seat, which was last up in 2019. This is what the Lib Dems are defending. In Ryhope ward, also in Sunderland, you have a UKIP defence. Whether or not the UKIP candidate is standing, though, is yet to be seen. I don't think they are in certain parts of Sunderland, even in seats they once won. Either because the candidate, or rather the elected UKIP councillors, defected to the Conservatives, or they aren't that organised. It does happen. It does happen. Now, when I do these streams, I often just choose random bits and talk about them at length, trying to pretend I know what I'm talking about sometimes, or rather just because it interests me. This week, however, I do have a bunch of notes, which I have on my phone here, and we're going to be going through those, looking at boroughs I recommend you keep an eye on. This map is not yet publicly available. It will be made available either next week or the week after. I will be doing a briefing for the New Statesman about the seats up for grabs, what to watch out for, and it'll be at that stage where you'll be able to view the map there. on the what would be the State of the Nation website. That's when we'll be making the map publicly. There are errors here. There are a few things I need to fix. I completely forgot, for instance, that Stoke-on-Trent was having boundary changes. So right now you're looking at the old boundaries, which I need to fix. But yes, this will be available at a later date. Now, so there are a litany of boroughs, councils, local authorities to keep an eye on, to keep a watch over for. And I just want to, in this stream today, which is going to be a lot shorter than what we had last week or the week before, or rather a few weeks ago, it's going to be a bit more succinct. We're going to hone in on a few boroughs and what to watch out for. We have no elections in London this year. There are no local elections in London, so if you notice the media coverage is a lot less in intensity, you will know why. We do, however, have local elections in home counties England, in what you'd want to call blue wall England. You have most of so-called red wall England up for grabs, with the exception of Doncaster and Rotherham. But, you know, the marginals that matter are up for grabs here. You will be able to get a decent public opinion take on much of East Coast England, this part of England that was so enamoured with UKIP and has since gone to the Conservatives. We'll be seeing what happens in Thanet, in Dover, in Brighton, in Portsmouth, Southampton, Bournemouth. A lot of places to talk about. You'll also see the commuterville towns going up, such as Swindon, such as Stevenage, such as Rugby, such as Milton Keynes. All of these places are interesting and worth talking about, but we're only going to hone in on a few today. So I want to start with Middlesbrough, because Middlesbrough has, I've mentioned this before, but I just want to touch on it again, because it has a significant number of independents. And you'll notice, look at them here. This was used to be a Labour seat, so where I'm highlighting there, where you're seeing the flashing change in the highlight. These were the previous winners by the year they were elected. So in 2015, this council seat was Labour won, and in 2019, it went independent. And you'll see it went independent by a damning margin, right? And thing with Middlesbrough is similar to the rest of the country. 2019, rewind to 2019, May 2019, it was the Brexit wars, it was the fall in support for both the Labour and the Conservatives, the ascendancy of the Brexit Party, of the Lib Dems, and to a lesser extent the Greens, and you did see the two main parties get a bit of a spanking. For the most part, across the country, it pretty much cancelled each other out. In the borough I'm standing in, Cheshire West, both the Labour and Conservative parties lost seats. In other areas, it was disproportionately to the detriment of the Labour Party, as it was like in Middlesbrough or Sunderland, and down south in places like round in Somerset, or indeed in Devon, in Tynebridge. It was to the detriment of the Conservatives. It's where local establishments exist. They got a spanking in 2019. And it looks as though we're going to start to see the opposite of that this year. So in Middlesbrough, it's an independent administration. The independents have, I think, just a majority control over this council here. And what they've done is they've handled, at least in the eyes of private eye, quite badly. An independent administration sought to establish this new corporation which would hive off local civic buildings, and it failed in the council chamber, partly because the independent councillors didn't turn up, but the Labour councillors did, and it's chaotic. I strongly recommend you read about it, have a look it up, but it was chaotic to the point that the independent administration is seen in disarray by both the local press and, it seems, perhaps local voters. So what we should expect here is a bit of a spanking for the local independents. Let me just read the notes I had. So, local independents who make up majority control of the council sought to hive off community assets to a mayoral development corporation at the behest of the Indie-elected mayor, Andy Preston. The vote to make it so, however, failed when half the independents didn't even bother to turn up to vote. Nevertheless, both the mayor and council leaders are seeking to go ahead with this corporation plan, plus transfer away. Something Labour, the local Labour Party, which appears to be the main opposition here, is campaigning hard to stop. we should expect in Middlesbrough some pretty big independent losses. You have these significant independent wins here with 50, 60% of the vote. We should, oh, look at that one, an 80% win as well. We should expect to see a lot of these fall either back to Labour or to different kind of independents or indeed local parties. But yeah, no. Oh yes, just as a correction, I do apologise. It's not on majority control of the independents. It's no overall control. It's just the independents have the whip hands. They're the ones, that are basically running things over in Middlesbrough. So we should expect some big independent losses there. Let's go to a completely different part of the world in Epsom and UL. I'm not going to pretend that I know what I pronounced it. We have new boundaries here in Epsom and Ewell. This is sort of like the outskirts of Greater London. It's an extension of Kingston upon Thames, Sutton, whatever those types of places. And they normally, in general elections, they should be quite inclined to vote Liberal Democrat, although we don't have any Lib Dem MPs here just yet. Although Esher and Walton, which is Dominic Raab's seat, that is something worth talking about. But I want to talk about Epsom and Ewell, Ewell? I'm not going to... Ewell. Epsom and Ewell, thank you, Andrew Teal, for that, yeah. So as I understand, the dominant residents association is annoying the local voters with house building plans. And the Tories are campaigning against with an alternative plan, as are the Lib Dems, and with every local house building plan, it always goes down a stinker with voters. I know myself personally, when you try and propose a house building plan, voters like the idea of house building, just not next to them. Everyone loves house building. It sounds brilliant. It's always just not in my backyard. And Epsom and Ewell perhaps seems to be one of those such cases. There are house building proposals, the locals don't like it, and the incumbents are sent to get a spanking. We should expect the Lib Dems to do particularly well here as well. I'm not sure about the Conservatives, given of course they're very badly behind in the polls, but we should expect the Residents' Association to get a bit of a kicking here. Now, let's go north of London to the other side of home counties England, to Dacorum. Is it Dacorum or Dacorum? I'm not going to try and pretend I know these places, or rather I know how to pronounce these places, but I'm going to say Dacorum. It is Dacorum. It is Dacorum. A sense of decorum. Well, decorum. But yes, no, this is the location where the Liberal Democrats launched their local election campaign, and it was also the locality. It is also the borough where David Gauke was the MP and stood as an independent. He got a respectable share. He got 20-something%, I think close to 30% here. And as you can probably tell, it's not averse to voting Lib Dem. We should expect these types of seats to see either a great deal of competition, either with Labour, who's second here, or the Liberal Democrats. You can see quite some strong Conservative votes, but if you add up all the anti-Tory votes, you're getting a majority in most places, although not all. I understand the Lib Dems are bullish here. Look at that Tring East. That was Conservative 48%, Liberal Democrat 37%. We should probably expect a Lib Dem gain there. I wouldn't be surprised if by the end of election night you do see all the way from Tring to Rickmansworth some pretty sizable Conservative losses, although indeed, look at these majorities. That one there, Ashridge, 69% Conservative, Lib Dem 24%. That is quite an ask for the Lib Dems, isn't it? But it seems as though they are targeting it indeed. Now, let us turn to the local authority app and ask to do on Twitter. If you want me to do a local authority, please do at me at BNHWalker. Let me know what you think about this stream. Let me know whether I'm right or wrong. I'm happy to hold up my hands and say I'm wrong. But yeah, tell me what you want to look at, what you want me to do. It's always interesting. I love local elections. I love covering them. So yeah, Brighton and Hove. Not just Brighton, remember, we also have Hove Local Authority, the unitary authority here. The Greens are bullish, as are Labour. Both of them are bullish. I've spoken to both Green and Labour activists, and they both think they can make pickups. They both think they can make expansions. However, the type of the voters that the Conservatives have lost big time since 2019 are the types of voters that they relied on, or rather rely on, to keep their council seats living on the edges of Brighton. These types of voters, to cut a long story short, are the most likely to stop voting Conservative based on the current poll. So we're talking, I don't want to say affluent, but actually, to be honest, it's middle class. It's middle class England and middle class urban England that are the least enamoured with the Conservatives, that have grown to be the least enamoured with the Conservatives since the chaos of Partygate, Owen Paterson, all that kind of stuff. And they are, if you want to talk about a type of Tory voter that is going from Conservative to Labour. To tell you the truth, half of them are very working class, very poor, very they're struggling, and the other half are kind of like they're struggling, but they're comfortable, they're okay, and they are disproportionately based in towns like Brighton, and have, I don't know, I wouldn't say slightly progressive views, but are more progressive than the median Britain, or rather more progressive than the median Conservative voter, and they exist here, and they are going Labour. And we should expect to see some big Labour gains from the Conservatives here in Brighton this year. Whether or not, though, Labour can hold on to what they are assumed to get, hold on to what they are assumed to be under attack from the Greens, is yet to be seen. Because as I understand it, the Greens are bullish too. They're bullish about holding their own. Whether or not they can expand is yet to be seen, but it's worth keeping an eye on. These are new ward boundaries. We don't really have any particular seats to talk about, but I think it speaks for itself. The Conservatives are in a fight for their survival here, and the Greens are not necessarily under threat by Labour, it doesn't seem. But yes. Oh, what's this? We just have a comment on twitch.tv. Swansea Carl says, Brighton does not even feature in the top 10 of councils for recycling. 6 out of 10 are Lib Dem led. Thank you, Swansea Carl. I wonder, are you a member of the Lib Dems, or are you just being an objective analyst there? Yeah. So, actually, that's actually quite interesting. 6 out of the 10 councils for recycling are Lib Dem led. I want to see, if you have that list, I'd love to see it, actually. That's fascinating. Okay, so Brighton, definitely one to watch if you want to see some big Labour gains from the Conservatives. How well the Lib Dems, how well the Greens will do in holding their own against Labour will also be interesting. I expect they will. But again, given Brighton isn't, is it a good council? Does it do well? Did the Greens run it well? I don't think they did in 2011 through to 15, which is why they got such a spanking in 2015, because at one stage, for those who don't know, the Greens were running as the largest party, or a majority, I can't remember. They ran Brighton Council and didn't do it particularly well. It was one of those councils where images of rubbish piling high in the streets became national news. It was similar to Paris with the pension protests this year. And it was a point of controversy when it came to the bin collection, and as a consequence, it really did crystallise into a bit of a green, a bit of a spanking for them in the local elections of 2015, even though Caroline Lucas, who was the Brighton Pavilion MP, expanded her majority. But yes, well worth talking about that one. Now, where should we go next? Let's just go along the coast, go past Worthing, which is always worth talking about. We should expect to see some Labour gains here in Worthing. Part of this is demographic change. Part of this also is local Labour activism. Labour wasn't active for a good few decades, from the 1970s until the 2010s, and when they did, they realised that the Conservative vote was pretty brittle or hollow or whatever, and they worked it, and they started winning seats here. Well worth keeping an eye on here, Worthing, Marine Ward, and maybe they could pick up another few seats as well. But no, we're going to go further along a little bit. We're going to just pass Portsmouth, though we're going to return there. We're going to be looking at Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole. Now, this is a one unitary authority. This is one local one. And do apologise, I still got a cold from last week. Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole is Conservative-led. It's Conservative administration, and put bluntly, they're broke. I'm going to read the notes here. What I've written down is there have been multiple allegations of misconduct, corruption. It's the full works, basically. They're a broke council with multiple allegations of misconduct and corruption. The police have been involved with certain allegations by councillors, and as I understand it, that's been going on for the past year and a bit. the Tory administration is set to be hit hard by this, and the auditors who've come in to look at the books have strongly criticised the administration's financial management. There have been some predictions, interestingly, on Twitter about Labour should make some big inroads, and I perhaps expect to see some Labour gains, absolutely, but you need to look at how far Labour is behind on this, okay? There are a lot of split wards in that. What I mean by split wards, I mean that the winning party, the party that topped the poll, got 25%. Look at this ward here, Boscombe East and Folkestone. Labour won it, or rather topped the poll here with 25% of the vote. The Conservatives came second with 24%. The Greens, 22%. The Lib Dems, 15%, and UKIP, 13%. That is a split ward. And there are others. But you're asking Labour to clean up and top it here, and I think that is a bit of an ask. I think we should expect to see the Lib Dems do a bit better and pick in more seats here, but to tell you the truth, it's anyone's game. I expect the Lib Dems will pick up more so around Poole and Bournemouth, and perhaps more so in Bournemouth West. But yeah, I think the primary, although the primary beneficiaries should be Labour, the primary beneficiaries should be the Lib Dems, we shouldn't rule out some decent Labour gains too. As I understand it, though, speaking to activists on the ground, there has been little sign that they've been making much in the shape of effort. This is the thing with local Labour parties, is where if they're making an effort on the ground, we should expect to see gains. If they're not, well, we shouldn't. We shouldn't really, should we? And that's the problem. Far too many local parties, be they Labour or Lib Dem, I think lesser so for the Lib Dems, they're just not trying. They assume they'll win the seat, or rather they don't know how to campaign in the 21st century, which is knock doors, get contacts, get the data, and get the vote out. And to be honest, that's not just 21st century campaigning, that's campaigning over the past half a century to the century. It's data is king, really, and you got to know who your vote is. And if you're not knocking doors, you don't have a blooming clue. So that's Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole. The Tory administration should be set for a kicking here. The primary beneficiary should be the Lib Dems. Labour should expect to make gains as well. But look at those split wards. It's anyone's game. On paper, it is anyone's game. It's going to be quite interesting stuff. But yeah, if you're hearing any banging in the background, that's my cat running around the house, because every time I'm streaming or on a call or whatever, she's just running around. I was recording a podcast with the New Statesman, and she just decided that moment to climb up the door and a whole host of other things. It was very embarrassing, but there we go. Now, we're just going to return along the coast, the south coast of England, to Portsmouth. Oh boy. Now, for those who don't know, the Home Secretary, Suella Braverman, has become, or rather been selected as the Conservative candidate for Fareham and Waterlooville. The Guido Fawkes called it the Battle of Waterlooville, or I think it was the Spectator, not sure which, but she's going to be representing this seat here, Fareham and Waterlooville, so let's see how the seats vote in May with that news story in mind. Waterlooville does seem pretty safe Conservative. UKIP came second in 2019 here, but, well, and you'll notice this bit as well. This bit voted UKIP in 2014. It's going to be interesting to see what happens there. But no, I want to focus on this bit. Portsmouth, the city of... Because, as I understand it, it's going to be a bunfest. Chaos. My notes here say, what is my anticipated result? Chaos. Can't wait. But no. The more detail is it's going to be a bit of a free-for-all here. All parties, plus local independents, are gunning for other people's seats. Anyone's call. Lib Dems think they can grab Tory seats. See the southern wards. Yes, the Lib Dems think they can win this one. Eastney and Craneswater here. Look at that. It's Conservative 35% in 2019. Liberal Democrat 25%. A margin of 10 points. And then you have Labour coming third. It's a bit of a three-way there, but I expect the Lib Dems to squeeze the hell out of that Labour vote. And note in 2022... it went Lib Dem. 2021, it went Tory, 19 Tory, 18 Tory, and 16 Lib Dem. Can we expect this to go anything but Lib Dem? Well, it could be anyone's calls. The votes have changed, demographics have moved, but it seems as though the Lib Dem should be odds on here. St Jude Ward. look at that again. Maybe the Lib Dems should be gunning for it if they are. Labour 33%, Liberal Democrat 26%, Conservative 24%. Another three-way. Worth keeping an eye on that as well. Now, if I remember rightly, we do have a Labour seat. This one. Charles Dickens ward. This ward went UKIP in 2014, but have since then voted Labour and relatively well, or as well as you could hope, in Portsmouth. Look at that. Labour 40%, Lib Dem 24%, UKIP 20%. Remember, this is the 2019 local elections. This wasn't last year. This wasn't 2021. This was 2019. This was the Brexit wars. So you did have a decent UKIP vote popping around here. So, yeah. As I understand it, the Labour infighting has proving a bit of a spoiler for Labour's chances. The local councillors was deselected, but is standing as an independent anyway. Let's see how well that happens. In the ward I'm standing in, actually, I'll talk about that later. But yes, when you have local independents, or rather local councillors being deselected or leaving in a tantrum or whatever, or being whatever, it is always an interesting, I suppose, case study in how well name recognition of a council, or how well a council has done at spreading their name around the ward. That is Charles Dickens ward, the local incumbent. The incumbent will be standing as an independent. A bit of trouble for Labour there. Labour think they can grab one Lib Dem seat, as I understand it. I think it's called Milton ward. Yes, Milton ward here has voted Lib Dem quite convincingly. To reiterate, as convincingly as you can expect in Portsmouth. But as I understand it, the Labour Party want to target this ward, want to take this ward, and good reason, I suppose. Lib Dems 41%, Labour 26%. They are clearly the second place candidate. But my goodness me, the Lib Dems think maybe perhaps they can squeeze that Tory vote. Maybe UKIP can. Maybe the residual UKIP vote will go Labour. But is it enough? Bit of a struggle there, bit of a fight for them, I suppose. What about the northern parts, Portsmouth bits? Copnor ward here. No real clear second place party. Labour 23%, UKIP 19%. Perhaps, I suppose, this will be a Labour target. The same here, 37% Conservative, 22% Labour. But again, you got a bit of an ask for Labour that if they do want to go out and get it. What if we go across onto the mainland in these wards? Oh, goodness me, look at that. Conservative 31%, UKIP 26%. UKIP almost took that seat. But that, again, where is that UKIP vote going to go? Almost probably a great chunk of it will stay home. That's the thing with UKIP votes. The thing with these hardcore leavers is that a great chunk of them, once they voted leave in 2016, they stayed home. But in 2019, they came out in a bit of anger, started voting for their old parties, and then in the 2019 general election, turned out to vote for Boris Johnson's Conservatives. And since then, some of them have stayed with the Tories, but a big chunk of them have stopped voting altogether. That's one of the reasons why there is such high apathy in the opinion polls right now amongst the Tory base. Drayton and Farlington, yeah, that's a bit of an ask for Labour, but curiouser things have happened, I suppose. What else have we got here? Yes, let's talk about a straight, clean fight, a clean Con Lab battleground. This is Swindon in Wiltshire. Well worth keeping an eye on here, even though perhaps the Lib Dems could take this ward. I just chose a random ward here, and my goodness me, look at that. Labour, 52% in Eastcott of Swindon, close to Swindon town centre. Lib Dems 34% to the Labour Party's 52%. Are Labour worried there? I don't expect they will be, but again, curious that things have happened. Labour, Keir Starmer was in Swindon not too long ago, and was very bullish. Beth Rigby, Sky political editor, asked him, is 1,000 seats your target? I think 1,000 seats is a bit of an ask, but who knows? I'll probably write about that at a later date. But I think Swindon Borough Council going Labour is an absolute must. This needs to happen. If you want to see a sign of a Labour recovery, winning in the, if you want to call it Commuterville, the commuter belt, Swindon is one such borough. They need to be winning this ward. They need to be winning Shaw. They need to be winning, they perhaps need to be winning as far as Covingham and Dorchen. here as well. It's a bit of an ask, indeed, but it needs to be seen to be happening. Labour doesn't need too much to win. Need many gains. Labour doesn't need that many gains to win control of Swindon, but a lot of this needs to be a lot more red after May the 4th. Well worth keeping a watch out if you're looking for those straight LabCon marginals. Right, what else do we have here? Cannock Chase, north of the Black Country. Here it is, Cannock Chase. This is worth keeping an eye on as well. This had a significant UKIP vote once upon a time, and you see it there in South Staffordshire. But we're going to be talking about Cannock Chase here. Well worth keeping an eye on. If you want to see sign of a Labour recovery, Labour need to be picking up these seats and picking them up quite convincingly. This one is a bit of an ask. Heath, Hayes East and Wimblebury. They won it in 2016. I think it was off UKIP or whatever. This was a type of seat that voted Conservative along with the Conservative majority win in the 2015 general, but Labour needs to be winning it. If you want Labour ahead in the polls, they need to be doing pretty well in Cannock Chase. Okay. As I understand it, however, I don't think the local party is putting much of an effort in, but they should. Again, this is one of those boroughs to keep, one of those, is it a district? I'm not sure. One of those local authorities to keep an eye out, absolutely, on the 4th of May. South Staffordshire, is there anything interesting about South Staffordshire? I'm not sure. I'm not sure, but it's worth keeping an eye on. Pretty much the Midlands is going to be absolutely exciting. Derby. Derby is one of these local authorities which has new boundaries. It did have a UKIP vote. You see these two wards here. Alveston ward. As I say, full disclosure, I'm a local council candidate, and I'm standing in the city centre of Chester, and a big chunk of the ward is student. And I was knocking on some doors, and I was actually speaking to a student. I was asking him, like, "Oh, you should register to vote here." No, don't. You register to vote where you live now, because this is your city as well. And they said, no, because I actually live in this part of Derby. I live in a part of Derby which is a bit of a more marginal than here. And I asked him, where in Derby? Oh, the parties, it's the far right who are targeting. And oh, really? And I guessed it. And I guessed it as Alveston, because Alveston ward. Oh, sorry. Hope that wasn't an issue. Yeah, Alveston ward. These two wards here was represented by Labour councillors until about 2012, if I remember rightly, and those Labour councillors defected to UKIP. I think his name was Alan Greaves. I think it was this fella who went from Labour to UKIP. He defended the seat and defended it pretty successfully, and since then has just kept a stranglehold on these wards, and he's been joined by 3 other councillors, and they should be gunning to win these seats in the. They won them as Reform Party candidates in last year's local elections. They're planning on doing it again in this year's local elections as well. They do, however, call themselves the Reform Party of Derby or whatever. So what they do is they take the Reform branding, the Reform money, but they give it more of a local rebrand, which is fair, is understandable when you have local Conservatives, Lib Dem focused candidate or whatever. But it's an interesting strategy, and it seems to work. But yes, if you want a sign of the Britain's radical right, how well they do, here is perhaps one place, yes, to keep an eye on. But always bear in mind the success of Reform here really is built, or almost exclusively built, on the success of the local councillors. However, the fact is, as the student I was canvassing in my ward said to me, he needs to go home and vote here to beat what he calls the far right. And if indeed voters are being teed up to vote in that way, then maybe it is turning into a battle we can apply national ideologies to, if indeed we want to. Yes, Derby, again, you should expect to see Labour should be trying to gun for these types of wards. But again, I wish I had the sort of local results to point to, but I'm using new boundaries, so I can't. Right, where else do we have to talk about? I want to keep this short. I'm conscious I don't want to talk too much here. Leeds. I always find Leeds fascinating. It's one of those cities that just has next to no investment in terms of transport infrastructure. It needs a tramway. It needs a whole host of decent bus system, and doesn't seem to get it because, well, we're a very centralised country. But again, look at this. Pudsey ward. We should perhaps expect Labour to at least pick this ward up, even though last year, when they were 5 points ahead of the Conservatives, they didn't. Look at this. So in 2015, when the Tories won a majority nationally, Labour won this council seat. In 2016, where it was pretty much the Tories and Labour were neck and neck, Labour won the seat. In 18, 19 and 21, where Labour were behind the Conservatives, particularly in 21 by a damning amount, very Conservative seats. And in 2022, it was a Conservative seat as well. But you look at those vote shares, Conservative 41%, Labour 38%. That should be a Labour target, and it should be a Labour gain. I would be very surprised if it isn't. One to watch, keep an eye on. But again, when I do these seats, when I look at them, I kind of think surely Labour should pick that up. And when I look at seats where, Labour's 10 points behind or maybe 20 points behind, I'm kind of thinking, oh, maybe they could get it. But then you consider the national polls. Again, 18-point Labour lead. Look at that. 46% Labour, 28% Conservative. Labour should be picking these seats up pretty comfortably, shouldn't they? Shouldn't they? Food for thought, but I'm not sure if they will. It all really depends on local organisation. Data is absolutely key. Look at this one, Horsforth ward, which, funny enough, is where my late grandmother lived. Conservative, 37%, Labour, 27%. At one point, I'm sure this was Labour voting. It did vote Labour last year. It voted Lib Dem in 2016. And I actually think in the Blair Brown years, this was one of those types of places that went from Labour to Lib Dem and has since gone Conservative. And if we went back to that, I think it is. You look at this Wheatwood ward, which is just next to Horsforth. Wheatwood, I think, is a little bit more deprived. It has its fair share of deprivations here. Includes most of Headingley. Lib Dem 42%. Labour 39%. But look at that. It voted Labour last year and Labour in 2021. If you want to look at Labour gains from the Liberal Democrats, this might be one of those seats. It has its fair share of deprivation. It has its issues. It is one of those types of seats that the Lib Dems would have won or probably will win if Labour's in government. But when Labour's not in government, it probably will be voting Labour. Adel, how do you pronounce that? Adel? Adel? I live locally, or I was born locally. I was just born over in Harrogate. I never knew, how do you pronounce that? Wharfdale, basically. According to people on the ground, Labour are targeting this. That'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see what happens here. All Woodley ward, which has a significant Jewish population. Let's see what happens here. Let's see whether there is a significant recovery in support for Labour. That's going to be interesting. Wetherby ward, which is very affluent. I understand the Greens are targeting this. They may win it. I think they got 30-something% in the seat last year, but in 2019, they only got 10%. This is what happens when you work the ward. National polls will get you up or down by a few percentage points, but unless you're knocking the door, unless you're getting the data, you're getting nowhere. Okay, and that's what it seems that the Green Party and Wetherby have been doing. What about Ilkley? Ilkley's quite split. Look at that. Conservative 36%, Green 25%, Labour 20%. That could go anyway. Keighley Central, one to watch out for. Labour should be picking this seat up. If they're not, they're doing something very, very wrong. Craven ward, the Greens could be bullish here, but maybe there's a local independent in the mix that could spoil things somewhat. What else can we talk about here? Do I have anything on my list? I've finished up with my list really here. Yes, Bracknell Forest. Now, for those of us here who are election nerds who like looking at elections, I strongly recommend you give Google, go into Google and search Vote UK Forum. They're a great bunch of guys on that forum. Great discussion about everything and anything. And what they're talking about is Bracknell Forest is in a bit of a racket. It's massively in debt, to the tune of £100 million. And what's happened here is perhaps the most blatant sign, if you want to call it, of a progressive alliance. The Labour and Liberal Democrats have seemingly done a deal to not stand one candidate against one another. the Lib Dems seem to have also done the deal to not stand a candidate against the Greens. So you have, while the Conservatives are standing a full slate of 40-something candidates, Labour are standing 22 candidates and the Lib Dems are standing 12. And not one of those 22 Labour candidates are standing in wards where there are Lib Dem candidates. And not one of those Lib Dem candidates are, of course, standing where there are Labour candidates. The Greens are having some free runs against the Conservatives too. What Bracknell Forest is perhaps the first major sign of a progressive alliance. And if you look at Bracknell Forest Council right now, they have around about, I think, 43 out of 47 council seats. That's a pretty damning majority. On the council they run it, they don't really have much in the shape of an opposition. And when you're in debt to the tune of £100 million, you should expect to be spanked by the public. And that is what we are going to expect. The simple fact here is this. The anti-Tory parties in this borough are not competing with one another for votes. Or rather, you are seeing Labour candidates stand against Greens, but you're not seeing Lib Dems and Labour compete. Or Lib Dems and Greens compete. It's so you're basically seeing pretty much some free runs for the anti-Tory candidates. This is the first, or rather the most major, most significant sign I've been able to find of a progressive alliance, if you want to call it that, unofficial or not, working together. Bracknell Forest. Let's see how that turns out on May the 4th. New ward boundaries, so there won't necessarily be anything to compare things against, but I tried to colour them by how it voted last time, and as you can see again, it is very conservative with the exception of this ward here, which probably, always emphasis on new ward boundaries, probably voted Labour. Meanwhile, in the surrounds of Wokingham and Woking here, in what is Berkshire going into, I think, Surrey, Lib Dems should be bullish. Although, what's this one here? Norris ward. Labour gain, potentially there. Lib Dem gain there, potentially. Lib Dems as well. Bracknell Forest. Includes, there, now we're in Surrey. Lightwater goes green. Where are we? Woking. Yeah, keep an eye on this. Look at this ward. Pirford. Conservative 38%, Independent 28%. I dare say that might be a disgruntled incumbent running as an indie, I guess. And the Lib Dems 14%. But look what happened last year. Lib Dem gain. Woking and Wokingham. Keep an eye out for Lib Dem gains and indeed potential Labour gains. And Bracknell Forest, Progressive Alliance. See what happens there. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be interesting stuff because if it works there, it might be able to work elsewhere. However, if you heard correctly what I was saying, Lib Dems were sort of working with the Labour Party and the Lib Dems were working with the Greens, but Labour and the Greens weren't seemingly working together. So you're going to be seeing Labour candidates versus Green candidates, but you're not going to be seeing Labour versus Lib Dem or Lib Dem versus Green. There are, of course, still, it seems to be teething troubles. The local Labour parties, which seems to be the case across the country, don't seem that keen on working with the Greens or necessarily working with other parties. Understandable when, of course, you're the party of, the official opposition and all that. But yeah, interesting stuff. What else can I talk about? What have we got here? Is there anyone in the comments section who want to recommend, suggest somewhere to have a look at? Oh, yes. Now, I mentioned this in a tweet once. Wakefield. Now, Wakefield proper, as in the actual city of Wakefield, is mostly voting Labour. Of course, you have Akef Akbar, which was a Conservative candidate who ran as an independent in last year's parliamentary by-election. And he won this seat, Wakefield East Ward, off Labour, as a Conservative, and he did quite well. He got, I think, 8% in the parliamentary by-election here. But by and large, almost entirely, Wakefield proper votes Labour, as well as, of course, it seems to be the Outwood ward as well. Although, look at that, Renthorpe and Outwood West. That voted Tory in 21 and Tory in 18, and it's a marginal. And there's a bit of a big UKIP vote. If Labour lose this, they're in serious trouble. They're doing something very, very wrong. Very wrong in recovering their vote in the so-called Red Wall, in the battlegrounds, the marginals that matter. Now, in Ossett Ward, I'm going to just get the tweet up here if I can. In Ossett Ward, the local Conservative candidate didn't tell her association. It's remarkable, really. Didn't tell her local party that she's no longer standing as an independent. I'm gonna get the article up here. Right, so we see that you have ad blocker. Right, yeah. Tories to lose Ossett seat as councillor. I don't have ad blocker. I'm on. It's Opera. I suppose it's Opera. Tories to lose Ossett seat as councillor pulls out of election race at last minute. Oh my God, how many notifications? Wakefield's Conservative group is to lose a council seat after its candidate for Ossett Ward has withdrawn from this year's local elections. Her name is Angela Taylor. The 11th hour decision means the Tory group have been unable to nominate a replacement candidate in time. The Conservative leader, the group leader, is disgusted at the timing. I mean, why would you do it? Her reasons for standing down in a statement released on April the 5th say, "It was with some regret I've decided to do this. I put my name forward for nomination, having been asked to do so by my colleagues, but due to factors beyond politics, I decided that I must withdraw. I was no longer able to give the time necessary to properly serve the people of the ward." Well, it is a bit late in the day, and I'll be honest with you, that is taking the pee. If that happened to one of us, I would be disgusted myself as well. Yeah. She has deprived the people of Ossett who want to vote Conservative the opportunity to do so. Okay. And Ossett, that is a marginal. That is a straightforward Conlab marginal. Conservative, 43%. Labour, 39%. That was it in the 2019 election result. Crikey, yeah. That's a definite loss for the Conservatives there. But South Ossett is a bit more of a marginal, a bit more battleground, although when you think about it, look at that. It was Conservative 43, Labour 39, and the more marginal ward, or rather the ward that has since been voting Labour, went Conservative 39%, Labour 33. You could, I dare say, you could almost be certain this will be a Labour gain. Both Ossett wards. What about Wakefield Rural? I think I was speaking to some local activists here, or an organiser or two, and say, on paper they should win it, but they're not. The local Labour Party are not putting any effort into it. What about this ward, Wakefield South? Ooh, bit of an ask there. Never voted Labour over the past 7 elections. But it is Conservative, 41%, Labour 28%. They should be winning that. I'll call on paper at least. Yeah. Then, of course, you have what is the Pennines, the correct side of the Pennines, I should add, as what would be a resident, or rather a departed Yorkshireman. What do we have here? Wakefield Rural. We have Denby Dale Ward, which went Labour last year. Look at that. Is Conservative 42%, Labour 32%. Labour should be picking that up. They should probably, if they're not, they're doing something wrong. Kirkburton, Green should be gunning for that. Conservative 46%, Green 35%. However, the Greens didn't win it last year when the Tories were 5 points behind Labour. So what's going on there? Keep an eye on that. Murfield Ward seems quite safe. We shouldn't expect that to change hands, but again, weirder things have happened. Again, the same here. Liversedge and Gormasal. Brighouse, which of course is the hometown of Davina De Campo, votes Conservative. And voted Conservative last year. Shouldn't expect that to change hands. The same here with Rastrick, Hipperholm and Lightcliffe, which is part of Batley and Spen. I think it's part of Batley and Spen. Or rather, it's going to be part of the new Batley constituency. I think it's Batley and Hipperholm. What else have we got? Birstall and Birkenshaw. This is in the Spenborough Valley, isn't it? Cleckheaton. Yeah, that's going to all be interesting stuff. Let's see if this sees any big moves. Queensbury Ward here. Oh, look at that. Conservative 32%, Labour 27%. Went Labour last year. Yeah, that's going to be interesting stuff. Yeah, just a correction here from the Ice Cream Melt. It's now the Spen Valley. We've got new constituencies. Well, the new boundaries are coming into effect, or rather, we'll get the nod from the King in July. And it will be only then that I start paying attention to the new boundaries, because until then I'm not giving them any due diligence, because they split my constituency, the one I live in, up. So Chester used to be all of this, basically. Bit of that, and this. and included Hanbridge Park. Now they want to split it down the River Dee, so it leaves Hanbridge, it leaves, curiously enough, the Chester Meadows, which is where Queen's Park is, in another constituency, and of course the Lech. No one in Chester's keen on that because it feels like they're splitting the city apart. And I'm not going to give the boundary changes any attention until they are finalised for good. Although quietly, I am slightly modelling how the election would happen under new boundaries. But I'm not gonna mention that just yet. No, Pretzel says it's gerrymandering. It's not gerrymandering. It's all done in an official, decent way. Even though the methodology is atrocious. Imagine trying to build constituencies with these massive building block seats. I don't think that's fair. I'm not too keen. But yes, Central Bedfordshire. What's interesting about Central Bedfordshire? Oh, yes. Are we expecting to see new boundaries? New boundaries, but maybe local independents could make some gains. I haven't done any research on this one. I do apologise for that. But if I can talk around it, Milton Keynes, that's definitely one to watch out for here. Big marginal, 2 parliamentary constituencies. Keep an eye on this. This is Conlab fights with the Lib Dems thrown in the mix here. Look at this. Bletchley Park ward. This went Labour last year and it was Conservative 37%, Labour 37%, pretty much by half a percentage point there. Look at that. Definitely, probably, it has to be a Labour gain. If it's not, what's going on? You should be expecting to see Labour picking up some pretty seats. Maybe like this one, Tatternow ward. If we have Labour 18 points ahead in the polls, as we are seeing here, Labour 46%, Conservative 28%, that's nationally. If we are seeing that nationally, we should expect to see Labour picking up some seats, perhaps like this one, Tatternow ward, which went Conservative 52%, Labour 29% at the last election. Should we expect that? Maybe perhaps we should. Lawton and Shenley ward, again, another marginal here. The Tories seem to have won these seats by the skin of their teeth. Same here, Lawton and Shenley and Bletchley Park. What about this one here? Stantonbury, Bury. Yeah, another one as well. Danesborough and Walton. Bit of a split anti-Tory vote there. Let's see what happens here. What about in Newport Pagnell? Yeah, another split anti-Tory vote. Seems to be quite safe Conservative there. One to keep an eye on. Let's see what happens on May the 4th, or rather after, as of course all the votes are counted. We're getting close to an hour. I want to keep these to an hour, I think, because I think they benefit, and I think you are benefited by me keeping myself succinct and straight to the point. I may do more of these streams, to be fair. I may look at Liverpool, definitely mid-Suffolk, which is going to be very exciting over here. Ones to keep an eye on. Southend as well. All along here in Gravesend, Gravesham, Dartford, Chatham, Rochester. All going to be interesting parts of the world that will be voting on May the 4th. And I'm going to be doing these briefings. Of course, we have 1, 2, 3 more to go. And I may do more during the week. But you can be guaranteed that for the remainder of the election campaign, there will be one every Sunday. But no, I want to keep this short, sharp, straight to the point. And I don't want to do it too long because 2.5 hours and you digging through to find the mere mention of Middlesbrough is really not exactly good. Just going to read some comments. Orc Slayer says, hello, just got here. Happy Easter all to all who celebrate. Yes, happy Easter back. I personally still am eating religious crackers for a few more days. I have heard the Tories have all but written off South Gloucestershire. The national mood isn't good for them outside Bristol. Local issues are not favourable whatsoever. And a tight result last time means there's strong opposition activities. However, it remains a question who forms the new government, since Lib and Lab both have strongholds here. South Gloucestershire, which is this. It's Filton and Bradley Stoke. It's Kingswood. It's these marginals. Look at those. There's marginal constituencies. Labour 9 points behind there. Labour 20 points behind there. The Lib Dems are 17 points behind there. Yeah. If they're right, if they've written off South Gloucestershire, which also includes Thornbury and Yate, that's going to be interesting stuff. Yeah, so South Gloucestershire extends all the way to the edges of Keynsham. Yeah, that's going to be interesting. So it's pretty much all of that. And according to this gentleman who is in our comments section, they say the Conservatives have written off these seats. And you can see why. Look at that. They're all quite competitive. Well, that one isn't, but yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Thanks so much for the local insight. That's great. Yeah, Labour needs to be picking up these seats. Kingswood constituency was one of those seats that fell to David Cameron's Tories, sort of like declaring the end of Gordon Brown's government in 2010. Filton Bradley Stoke was another one of them. They are on the edges of Bristol. So again, similar to Brighton, the types of voters that the Tories have already lost, have lost under Boris Johnson. Surely Liverpool doesn't go Lib Dem, maybe a few wards, but not the whole council. The chances of Liverpool going Liberal Democrat this side of a Labour government is next to non-existent. Ask us again when Labour get into government. But yeah. Andrew Teal says, we'll send you the 4th of May previews draft when I finish it tomorrow. Thank you, Andrew. That's very good. I should actually reply to your emails as opposed to on here. No, you sent some brief on the Northwest, and I was very grateful for that. I had a read through on the train once, so I'm grateful for that. What else we got here? Terence Price YT says Liverpool is certainly one to look at, as old Liberals, Lib Dems and Greens all have target seats there against Labour and all think they can make gains. Very different compared to most of the country. Perhaps they'll make gains. There are definitely local independents gunning for things, Greens and Lib Dems, as you say, but enough to, change the balance of power of the council? I doubt it. Again, like I say, I think ask that question again when Labour is government, when the Labour vote is apathetic and quite indifferent about staying with Labour, and that might bear out to be true. But I don't yet see a sign of that happening. I don't think. What else have we got? Oadby and Wigston staying relatively Liberal Democrat for the 33rd year in a row. Oadby and Wigston over in Leicestershire. Where is it? Yeah, this is the outskirts of Leicester, although really it should be part of Leicester. But again, boundaries, hey? Yeah, probably a Lib Dem seat, very well. Why would Oadby and Wigston ever disappoint? I wonder how well they're going to do in like Bosworth Way and Hinckley as well. Let's see what happens there for the Lib Dems. Surprised that the Northern Independence Party only fielding 2 candidates total. Yeah, that's good. Such a shame. Oh well. Yes. Lincoln is... I don't know if it's a one to watch because there's not much exactly worrisome. Perhaps the Lib Dems will gun for this seat. Carwell Ward. Look at that. Labour 46%, Lib Dem 34%. We should perhaps see Labour targets, but targets where? Where are Labour going to target? Not really anywhere to target. They just need to keep a handle on all that they've won, and they may struggle. Look at this one. Abbey Ward, Labour 42%, Lib Dem 29%. But it went Lib Dem last year and the year before. Going to be interesting, that. But yeah. Now, this, I think, should probably conclude the Britain Lex stream, because, to be honest with you, there's a lot. There's a lot to go through. There's a lot to talk about, and I think I don't want to talk a little bit too much for it. But yes, look, put bluntly, I want to keep these to an hour or a little bit more. We're doing an hour and 5 minutes here, and I've still got a cold, and I can feel it. I can feel it coming on now. But yes, look, a briefing every week, maybe even more, maybe a few a week. Who knows? If there's news to talk about, I'm going to talk to you about the polls. I'm going to tell you what's happened nationally. I'm going to talk about all that kind of stuff. And then we'll talk about the local elections. And that probably will be it. And now I'm going to go and enjoy my Easter Sunday. So, yes, thank you very much for joining the Britain Elect stream. Kept it to an hour. Hope you found it interesting. If I've made any errors, please do let me know. Get in touch at me on, not Britain Elects, it's BNH Walker. The Britain Elects mentions have gone pretty much unmonitored for 10 years now, and I have no interest in changing that anytime soon. Some of you have been abusive, not interested in reading that. Yes, so thanks for joining the Britain Elects stream. I recommend you follow us on twitter.com/BritainElects. Tell your friends about us. This map that you've just seen will be going live, will be available for public consumption at a later date, probably later this week or the next. I don't know. It depends on my work schedule. That's about it. Now I'm going to go and enjoy Easter Sunday. So thanks very much for joining us, and I will see you whenever. Thank you. How do I end this? Bye-bye.